This is exactly what it sounds like. The rules for this run are largely unchanged from the original video in the base game. The only weapon I'm allowed to use in any capacity is the flamer, be it arson or blunt force trauma. Any damage with the flamer is legal. Environmental situations that lead to damage is fair, as it is out of my control. I can do the playthrough however I want. All other items are barter material. There's no other restrictions to this run outside of the weapon requirement. One rule I established in later videos was to beat the game as closely as intended by the developers, and that point still stands for this DLC. Another thing to note, I will be using the original Flameo Hotman build, as while I could easily make a new build that actually, makes sense. It wouldn't be a Mr. Max video if I did anything resembling proper research, but that doesn't mean I didn't learn anything from the first time. Enough talking, I have an island to burn. In the interest of saving time, and simply because I'm lazy, I loaded a save I made shortly after clipping out of Vault 111 many moons ago. As a reminder for our special stats, we have Endurance at 10, Charisma, Intelligence, and Luck at 5, and everything else at 1. Walking into the Vault elevator allowed me to get a quick refresher on what my Lord and Savior looks like. The face only a mother could love. I got to the surface, and my first order of business was to attack a nearby cone and head towards Sanctuary for the sake of loot and chit-chat with Codsworth. I had zero plans to do any power leveling here, as I didn't feel that would be fair. My focus is on Far Harbor, not the base game. I did however grab the special book in Sean's room to give myself one extra point into strength. I checked the difficulty settings to make sure nothing was changed and started sprinting towards the general direction of County Crossing to get my weapon. I'm pretty sure someone mentioned there's an easier way to get the flamer on the first video, but I can't be bothered to check. I got chased by flies and totally didn't get lost and had to Google where my destination was. I started the robot rebellion by picking up a t-shirt, lured one to some NPCs in a failed attempt to save my skin, ran into ghouls and turrets, and found County Crossing with my skin hanging on by a thread. Once in the loving arms of other people, I began attempts to get my flamer with limited success, as was expected. I still die in first person, and I haven't figured out why. I eventually got the flamer and tried to help the locals deal with the blood bugs, but decided it was easier to run away instead. I tried my combat skills on a nearby Protectron and got reminded that I'm mortal, reassured myself with a feral ghoul, helped a man go swimming, and chose to explore Boston. My original plan was to hoof it to Diamond City once I got my flamer to start the quest, but only realized the game doesn't give you the quest to start Far Harbor just for walking into town after I got there. I did explore enough to level up and waste my first perk point on Ghoulish and my second point on another strength level. After realizing how much time I wasted, I decided that hauling butt all the way to the northernmost point of the map to the Nakano residence was a much better idea. This was easier said than done due to the local everything. I hugged the map boundaries, talked to the Nakanos, I extorted Kenji, and began my search for clues. I used my 4th level to take Arborer rank 1, which ended up being completely useless. I got my money, got on a boat, and only just noticed Bethesda really made you take a boat near a low detail area of the map. I landed in Far Harbor, met Avery and Alan, and was tasked with helping the town defend against the fog. Thankfully I had no ammo, so I stood there and looked pretty while the residents did most of, if not all of the work. I did try to melee on the ground a few times, but the Gulpas are strong enough to send me to hell with a light shove. I eventually retreated into town and sold my trash to the bartender, as one normally does. And it was around here where OBS pooped itself for the first and only time during this run. I lost about 45 minutes of footage, but nothing eventful was lost. On my next recording, I got busy with helping the residents of town to get on people's good sides. Alan thankfully had flamer fuel for sale immediately, so I wasn't going to be entirely defenseless going into the island. I started working towards getting power tools for the Mariner, only to run into my first group of trappers who managed to kill me. I opted to go bowling instead, but the ghouls near the alley weren't very happy about that. A legendary feral stalker was annoying in particular, especially since it ate a third of my health with each hit. Inside the alley, I tried to conserve ammo as much as possible, killing what I could and looting the rest. I ran into a glowing one because of course I did. I had this brilliant idea to melee bash a fuel canister, and it ended exactly how you think it did. In a different direction, I managed to find a spot where I could bash ghouls until I fell through the floor, and I did my first real shopping trip once I made it back to town. I went back for round 2 after making some changes to my flamer, ghouls followed me outside, Cassie Dalton is probably insane, and I spent a lot of time at the bowling alley, enough to find out that pins in the physical alleys are owned for some reason. A ghoul was also having the time of its life trapped underneath some barriers. I battled the trappers that took me out earlier, snagged some coastal armor simply because it looked cool, and I kept trying to push through the island with my limited resources. The lack of loot was starting to become very apparent here. Going back and forth to any area where I could to do some trade was very common in this run. If anything, I'd say it was more common than it was in the main game. However, things play much differently when you're in a massive city versus a small island off the coast of Maine. There's not exactly as many places to loot like there is in the Commonwealth, and you can't be away long enough under normal circumstances for loot to respawn in most cases. From my experience while playing this game, the loot that I found was the loot that I found, and I just had to sack up and deal with it. If I wanted anything better, I'd have to take it off of a body, which more often than not required me to put myself in danger. Speaking of danger, Cassie told me to go take down a fog crawler, but at my current level, that wasn't happening. So I went there anyway and discovered the location for later. A super mutant was rude and walked away when I tried to talk to him, and I took Cap Collector at level 6 to make my life easier in terms of buying and selling. This brings down flame refuel from 3 caps per round to 2 caps per round, letting me get more out of my barter material. Kitteridge Pass had some pretty good stuff in there, but it also had a lot of ghouls, including a Reaver, because why is anything allowed to be simple? Yeah, I'm still bitter about Fallout 3. At one point I was in town and took a look at the souvenir cups that are on display at Alan's shop, and noticed Maine is spelled incorrectly, spelled M-A-I-N. How does this even happen? Seriously, it's the name of the state, literally. I went in a different direction towards a quest marker I had at the time, battled and lost to super mutants at the National Park HQ, blinked back for more supplies, chased a rabbit, a super mutant got the touchdown of a lifetime, went to the day spa, and died to mines near Dalton Farm. You may be noticing that I'm doing a lot of things other than the main quest. That's mostly because I'm trying to level up, and when you really boil down the DLC to the bare minimum of what you need to do there really isn't that much in terms of content, kinda like the main story. It's there, but if you do nothing but that, you'll basically finish it in an afternoon. I finally spoke to Longfellow, who wanted booze if he was going to help me get to Acadia, so I gave him whiskey and went to go finish getting power tools for the Mariner. You'd be shocked to know that Bethesda only knows 5 things about the Fallout series, and 3 of them are feral ghouls. The mannequin in the Pulowski shelter was telekinetic, I got insta-killed by a pistol whip, and with no ammo whatsoever, I decided to book it for the tools inside the tannery, but ended up getting cornered. I was trapped in a small area, but the ghouls were too stupid to realize there was a gap between me and them. I wasn't really in the mood to reload a save, so I started looking for ways to get past them. Tried to cheese my way through a small opening, but a glowing one scraped my knee and sent me into a coma. I eventually realized that most of the ghouls rush to the side hallway if I enter that same spot far enough to trigger them, but not far enough to where they can reach. Getting most of them out of the way let me run past the one straggler that remained. I got out of the tannery, escaped into the water, and blinked back to Far Harbor. The doctor told me to try and kill a Mirelurk queen. You'd be disappointed to know that for once I didn't try to do something as dumb as solo a queen with a flamethrower. I took a walk with Longfellow to appreciate nature and pet the local puppies. I kept getting one-shotted by gulpers, and radiation was proving to be a bit of an annoyance due to the lack of Radaway. This was a combination of me being unable to find loose ones easily, and the fact that Radaway is also incredibly expensive. It's almost like a nuclear war happened and it's in short supply or something. Made it to Acadia and leveled up, taking Heavy Gunner rank 1. Finally found some loose Radaway, went inside, and introduced myself to Dima. I spent a lot of time here just talking to him since this was the first time I played through Far Harbor since I played the game on the Xbox One. I also spent a lot of time in Acadia in general, introducing myself to and talking to just about every synth in the building. It reminded me why I like RPGs, talking to anyone and everyone in an area to learn some information or to see what dumb stuff they can tell the player. I eventually found Kasumi, who told me she suspected Dima was planning to destroy the island based on things she found in his memory banks. After pressing Dima for answers, I learned that the children of Adam are planning to do something extremely stupid because their leader is an idiot and sucks. He mentioned some memories of his holed up in their base, and now it was my job to make sure I can get to them. He stressed that I don't harm the children at all, which I'm sure I'll remember when the time comes. I started doing some quests for Acadia both for clout and EXP as I wanted to get a few perks before ever going near the Nucleus. I found a robot looking for a detective, got one-shotted by an angler, got blasted by some trappers, and started treating my flamer like a semi-automatic gun, using individual clicks when I knew I could hit for the sake of ammo conservation. I don't know if it was really effective in the grand scheme of things, but it certainly felt like it was when I was playing. I soon found myself dead in Southwest Harbor and retrieved some data tapes from a burning boat, swam to the nearby Vim factory, and nearly ruined my chair when I heard a super mutant suicider doing its beeps. Tried to battle the mutants, died to a hound, blinked to Acadia to turn in the drives and level up again, taking Scrounger as my next perk. As a reminder for a run like this, caps only get me so far and they act like credit more than anything. Weapons, armor, and junk give me more caps per item, but they also have weight. Ammo is at least 1 guaranteed cap per round and is much more convenient, doubly so for fusion cores, which can get me a good sale price. I took down the fog crawler at Dalton Farm, and Cassie rewarded me with another death wish for later. I went to go find a missing synth to find out he got eaten, taking out my frustrations on the trappers only to get my head caved in by a Molotov. Got a gun for my efforts and took Heavy Gunner rank 2. Stole some things, filled in Kasumi on what's going on, firefights happened, and actually managed to get inside the Vim factory. I was hoping it would be a Sunset Sarsaparilla situation where there's like a million bottles of the stuff laying around, but unfortunately that turned out to not be the case. Just a lot of super mutants, garbage, and pain. I did, however, get the Vim power armor as a trophy for my effort. I eventually left the factory with my drip in hand and kept the power armor in Far Harbor because I didn't want to be cheap for the rest of the game. Went shopping, explored, and shot up raiders in a cavern. At this point during the note-taking process, I was kind of just letting the clip run through since most of these recordings is just me trying to level up. I banged out a quick Tetris session on my Game Boy and, frankly, I could have done worse. Waddled through the woods with all the loot that I got, commerce took place, and someone died. I started using the doctors to heal myself because I can't find any medicine worth anything. I think this might be the only documented case of someone actually paying a doctor to heal your health in the 8 years Fallout 4 has been out. It also just occurred to me that Fallout 4 is 8 years old. Dear Mother of God, what happened? Money was getting easier to handle by this point, which is always a good thing, and I started to push towards the Nucleus. They blasted a guy into the next life right in front of me. I chit-chatted with Richter for a while and tried to remember what Dima told me about the children earlier.
You will assault the children directly, bring war to them, it will be funny.
I began my one-man siege of the children of Adam right there. Radiation proved to be a monumental pain once again, but I got some new drip courtesy of what was left of Grand Zealot Richter. The lack of radiation protection was an issue, but it didn't matter because the armor looked nice. I soon entered the Nucleus after a healing session, and my plan was to lure people to me and slowly pick them off. That proved to be a pain, mainly because of how Fallout 4's radiation works. It's not like 3 or Vegas where it's in a separate meter and you get status effects based on how much you have. Rads instead lowers your maximum health. In any standard firefight where you can heal normally, this isn't a problem, but in a firefight where enemies not only do damage but can also take away your healing ability, the children pose a legitimate threat. This is complicated by the fact that Radaway can only do so much when the children can deal over 50 rads at a single shot, so sometimes your rads come back faster than you can get rid of them. Radix doesn't so much as increase your radiation resistance as it does delay the inevitable. You could have Radaway on a constant IV drip and it will mean nothing to the crazy cultist with the cancer rifle and pinpoint accuracy. Speaking of accuracy, sometimes that isn't even needed considering the gamma guns some of them carry have shots the size of Alaska so they can aim in your general area and still hit you. They're incredible for trade, but annoying as heck to go up against with a flamer. After retreating to Far Harbor to rethink my strat, I traded what was left for some extra Radaway and followed Pearl to the Cliff's Edge Hotel. This is the last time I will mention it here because the fact that I did a lot in there, died after stealing a water bottle, and forgot to save made me very upset. Shopping Episode 2 aired to little fanfare, and I went to Brooks Head Lighthouse to finish the last of Cassie's quests. I learned here that with some quests you don't have to clear the entire group, only a specific person. I tried to kill Douglas by blasting him through a staircase, but unfortunately he had the same idea. It took a while, but I eventually got him and ran like heck to safety. For all of my troubles, she gave me her prized family heirloom. A dirty hook. Note to self in my next video on Far Harbor, kill Cassie immediately. The game was starting to glitch out and made it impossible for me to see out of windows, so I restarted the game just in case. I used what little Radaway was left to deal with the children while trying to retain my healing ability as much as possible. I tried to retreat, but they followed me outside and put me in a death loop. Thankfully, if you spam the Pip-Boy button on the loading screen, you can open it the second the game finishes loading your last save. I started to get rid of what stragglers were left in the open area, which was going very well right up until the spirit of Legate Lanius came back and started spamming nuka grenades. Retreated again to get ready. Came back to find the grenade guy, found the grenade guy, got rid of the grenade guy, and took damn near everything because there was no way I was leaving the Nucleus empty-handed. I also found out that the bottom of the submarine is massively irradiated for the sake of being massively irradiated and having absolutely nothing else. Another wonderful world design decision from the team at Bethesda. Deeper in the base, I started dealing with the security system. Turrets, gutsies, protectrons, you name it. I ran into an assaultron, which is basically a jump scare at this point. I had to run, fight, and pray because I really did not want its face laser to so much as scrape me. Once turning on Dima's memory banks, I had to deal with the second one with the legitimate concern that I might run out of ammo, which thankfully didn't happen. Dima's memories are a thing you do as part of the Far Harbor DLC. I have nothing noteworthy to say about them other than the fact that they were something I did. After finishing with the memories, I found areas with super mutants, ran out of ammo, and died. I eventually got inside the hotel, which had the location for the launch key to the nukes inside the sub. The problem was I was mostly defenseless in a claustrophobic area crawling with super mutants. They kept cornering me in various places and their attacks nearly clipped me into the room with the launch key location. Once I successfully escaped, I went to the dock where it was located. There was a super deadly Mirelurk there because why not? I got the key and then entered the Nucleus for the final time. More children showed up to fight me and they failed. I bolted inside past the children in the sub, popped the key in, armed the nukes, and got the hell out of there as fast as I could. I stood back to watch the fireworks and leveled up, taking Bloody Mess, which would have been good to have 5 recordings ago. Entered the regional soda building for the final time, dug up Avery's corpse, took her head and valuables, and left. Back in Acadia, Dima seemed upset that I destroyed the children of Adam. Listen, I know what he said. He knows what he said, but deep down I knew he wouldn't have wanted him to go about any other way. I told him I knew Avery was a synth, and he tried to get me to be quiet. I told Kasumi everything, and she gave me supplies I needed several hours ago. The town took their sweet time to get ready to talk about the nuke that went off on the other side of the island, and Brooks had the comedic timing of God himself.
Please, a moment of silence.
Bait Shop's got everything you need.
Thank you.
After laughing for a good 10 minutes, Ellen paid me for getting rid of the children, and I woke up Avery from her nap to tell her she's a synth. She tried to deny the evidence that was right in front of her, and I told her to cry about it. I burned my last perk point and told Dima I'd keep quiet after telling Avery everything. I told Kasumi it was finally time to come home and said goodbye to the state of Maine, spelled M-A-I-N apparently. I saw the Nakano family reunion, finished the close to home quest, and picked up Grandpa Nakano's garbage. Since the quest was done, I wasn't technically breaking any more rules, so I pulled out a missile launcher, peeked into a window, fired 1 missile at Kasumi, and killed myself in the process. I might have blown myself to smithereens, but I beat Far Harbor with only a flamer. Thank you for watching, leave your thoughts down in the comments below and check out my challenge runs playlist linked on screen. I'm Mr. Max, I'll see you next time.